Good day, I'm Junior Researcher Adam Southgate, and today we'll be covering a general recap of the defense of Draig Goch. I'd appreciate that all hunters please subscribe as to not miss any future lectures, and also if you enjoy the lecture and find it informative, please like the video and click the bell to ensure you do not miss any future announcements. I would also be very happy to hear your thoughts, views and stories of your own interactions with the monsters of the spheres in the comment area of this video. Also, I'm always ready to answer any questions you may have, and please share this lecture with any hunters you feel would benefit from them. I'd like to begin by offering a personal thank you to each and every hunter who took part in the defense of the dragon. Beyond this, the Order would like to bestow upon certain hunters titles befitting of their deeds, as is custom. To Hunter Dunsoul, the Order bestows upon you the title of Giant's Bane. To Hunter Gasmask Man, the Order bestows upon you the title of Dragon's Wing. To both hunters, the AI 25,000 and that one guy, the Order bestows the title of Tidebreaker. To Hunter Amir Dapro 99, the Order bestows the title of Fey Touched, to represent your mental will from keeping your sanity even after direct interaction with Anthra. I feel I need to reiterate that all hunters who took part are heroes, however, these hunters distinguished themselves above the rest. So then, the following is a collective report gathered through the records of radio communication during the event and the personal testimony of the hunters after the fact. Upon August the 23rd, hunters received word that the hag Geraldine had commenced a large-scale attack upon the mountain containing Draig Goch. An emergency contract was posted calling for any available hunters of any rank to volunteer in the defensive effort. The 500 security staff stationed at the mountain base while holding would soon be overwhelmed by the relentless assault. Upon their arrival, the hunters found the defense in chaos. The attack had happened so suddenly that nothing had been put in proper position. The non-combat support staff were terrified, not knowing what to do with themselves and with nowhere to go. The security staff had been fighting non-stop, without rest, as there simply wasn't enough of them to create a proper rotation. Finally, while the ammunition was in good supply, no one had had the thought or time to work out a sufficient means of transportation. The hunters had to figure out which issue to tackle first. Initially, the hunters had decided to airlift the terrified support staff away from the mountain. However, Hunter Dunsoul, seeing the desperate situation, spoke to the assembled and frankly frightened crowd. His speech filled with the fire of the dragon that the hunters aimed to protect, and his words ringing with the knowledge of Merlin, he was able to convince those who sought to flee to instead stand and fight. As he explained, the hordes were packed shoulder to shoulder. All the support staff needed to know was how to fire and reload. Aiming really wasn't a factor. Once the training was underway, things had begun for a time to look up. However, the unrelenting waves of slathering monstrosities were constant, and the defensive line surrounding the entire mountain was being pushed to its limits. With the numbers of the monstrosities only increasing, Dunsoul ordered a walking retreat. Under the advisement of the AI 25,000, the new line was established outside the entrance to the mountain, still allowing access via the air. While the well-organized move to the new fallback position was initially going well, trouble struck as the hordes noticed the retreat and surged forward, pinning the hunters in place. The battle was ferocious as the hunters began to become encircled, surrounded by gnashing teeth and splintered wood. Then, cresting over the opposite hill, they came, thousands of fey-maddened followers of Anthra, throwing themselves at the monstrosity's back line. The cultists, giving their lives on their master's order, pulled enough attention away from the hunters for them to complete their retreat, establishing a far more reinforced new line. Before relief could set in, the hunters noticed that out in the distance, a large group of Anthra's followers were still fighting against the horde desperately. They had fallen into the same position the hunters were in previously. Some of the hunters argued that they should be saved, while others argued that they were mad cultists and already doomed. Hunter Dunsole with the rest of the hunters made their decision, leaving the cultists to die at the hands of the ravenous hordes. Every cultist's death brought them another second to erect the new defense. They made use of the mountain stores, putting up a quick and dirty barricade, using the emptied crates that had once held ammo and weapons, filling them with rocks and dirt. All the furniture from the Order's outpost within the mountain was dragged to the surface en masse and piled high with the crates to create a serviceable wall. Chains of cold iron links were hung over the structure, causing pain to any that attempted to break their way through. Meanwhile, Hunter That One Guy established a second line of defense inside the cave entrance in case the new line were to fail. While the sea of unfathomable beasts continued to attempt to break through the new line, the wall had created much needed breathing room for the hunters inside. On the 5th day of the siege, the hunters were met with a surprise. Anthra the She appeared within the defences, or perhaps he had always been there. Assuming the shape of a Roman faun, Anthra declared his intentions to fight alongside the hunters as one of them. He appeared to be restricting himself, whether not to spoil the entertainment or to not call down the wrath of the hag upon himself, we are unsure. The hunters, though understandably wary, accepted his presence for now, with Hunter Amir Depro 99 assigned as his handler. Turning to another matter, the hunters took the chance to inventory the supplies that were remaining within the mountain. While the supply of melee weapons remained strong, ammunition was quickly drying up. Along with this issue, sounds could be heard coming from the valley leading to the mountain. With the ammunition so low, the support staff had far less to do and had begun to worry and dwell on their situation again. However, the hunters had been informed that the helicopters were ready to assist in whatever way they could. While the hunters could have used the helicopters to scout out the strange sounds coming from the far valley, instead they prioritized the shipment of ammunition and the extraction of the support staff. Cheers rang out as the first helicopter crested the nearby hill and into view of the hunters. It brought both the promise of ammunition and the salvation of the non-combatants. Hunter Dunsole had organized a suitable landing space for the helicopter. Due to the limited space within the new defensive line, only one could land at a time, and even that was a squeeze. Hunter That One Guy, with the hunters under his direct command, unloaded the first shipment of ammunition and then loaded on the first group of the support staff to be evacuated. A second cheer rang out as the helicopter took off. Hunter Amir Depro 99 noted that when looking at Anthra in this moment, he noticed a look on the Fey face that was difficult to discern, something between excitement and concern as he stared down the valley. As the second helicopter crested the hill, carrying even more much-needed supplies, along with a new design of the cold iron spear launcher, it happened. What at first seemed to the hunters as a thick cloud of choking smoke rising from the other end of the valley suddenly exploded outward in all directions. Millions of tiny creatures the size of a man's fist darting through the air and diving at incredible speeds past each other in maneuvers that scream impossible at the backs of everyone's mind, reported Hunter Gasmask Man. The diminutive aerial beasts reformed into a terrifying flying pillar tossed at the helicopter as if by some vengeful giant. They threw themselves into the rotors in their thousands. The blades buckled and snapped under the strain of mincing so many of the creatures. The helicopter slammed into the ground past the horde and out of sight of the hunters within the defense as the remaining winged entities retreated back to the mouth of the valley. As the night rolled in and the crushing mood held, something unexpected transpired. The horde of abominable monstrosities ceased their attack. They did not retreat, they simply all took a step back, leaving a meter space between themselves and the hunter's wall. They did not respond when individuals were picked off, and simply held their new position, those behind stepping forward to take the place of those who had fallen. The hunters confronted with this situation were torn. Some put forward the idea of attempting to push through to the downed helicopter to retrieve the supplies. Others made the argument that the hunters should attack the horde together in a phalanx, while some stressed the need to understand what was happening and instead wanted to send a smaller team up the mountain to gain a better perspective on what was happening. With the horde seemingly frozen in place and the strange sounds increasing from the other end of the valley, the hunters decided to scout out the situation. Hunter, the AI 25,000, volunteered to lead a small team up the mountain to get a better look at the battlefield. Hunter Dunsole, having taken on the role of leader, wished the group well as they began their arduous climb. Around half an hour later, Hunter, that one guy who was manning the perimeter wall, called out a change before the scouting team had reached their target location. The horde, that was thousands deep, had thinned out to only tens deep. What at one point had been so thick that it was impossible to see through had begun to show occasional gaps. The hunters let out a victorious shout. The thought that they'd thinned out the monsters to such a point filled them with elation until the scout team reported back over the radio. Hunter, the AI 25,000, spoke of a solid line of monstrosities leaving the horde and headed to the opposite end of the valley to where the strange sounds had been emanating from. While the hunters deliberated what this could mean, the radio sparked to life again. The AI 25,000 said only one word then: Titan. It wasn't long before all the hunters could see the creature as it slowly made its way toward the mountain. A Fey Titan, half the size of the mountain itself, with skin that seemed to shift and glisten like the surface of crude oil, until sudden bursts of the winged creatures took flight from its surface, exposing a twisted fusion of flesh and tree bark. The scout team called back again. The horde, it's fusing into the Titan. Many of the hunters reported feeling a sickening lurch as they realized the horde had stopped fighting to preserve their mass for the giant to consume, and it was headed their way, big enough to collapse or dig into the mountain itself. Some hunters suggested falling back into the deepest part of the mountain, while others suggested fleeing entirely, leaving the support staff behind as a distraction. However, the old hunters, veterans of countless hunts, suggested a third option: to charge. Despite the reservations of Hunter Gasmaskman, Hunter Dunsole ordered a breakthrough charge past the few remaining horde entities, and then for the hunters to push through to the Fey Titan itself. Gasmaskman arranged the support staff at the lowest, most secure part of the mountain, with a small amount of the security team to keep them out of harm's way, then readied himself for the charge with the other hunters. Hunter, the AI 25,000, worked with other hunters to attach cold iron chains to doors and crate lids to be used as makeshift shields against the flying entities that covered the flesh of the giant. Hunter, that one guy, went through final checks of the base's few vehicles, a single jeep and 2 army-issue trucks. He attached, with his team's aid, any spare cold iron not already used on any other projects to armor the vehicles against the Fey. Hunter Amir Depro 99, already slightly Fey-maddened by his time with Anthra, agreed to aid him in the ritual of Bramble, sacrificing a pint of his own blood to the process. Anthra, though he was more than capable of casting the spell himself, was forced to play by rules not fully understood by the hunters, but ones he assured them would mean that the hag would not be allowed to bring her full power to bear. Once Amir Depro 99's blood was taken, a small, deep crimson daffodil-like growth sprouted upon Anthra's neck, which he explained would cast the spell once plucked. Though admittedly woozy, Hunter Amir Depro 99 joined the other hunters ready for the charge. All became ready, and an eerie silence descended upon the assembled hunters and security staff. All that could be heard was the approaching footsteps of the Titan. Hunter Dunsole stood atop the bonnet of the jeep and spoke to all assembled. "Hunters, we stand, not only for the dragon, but for ourselves. Each of us have faced threats unimaginable by normal men, and all of us came through triumphant. Today we faced yet another threat. Now it may be larger, it may be more powerful, but it is simply another threat, and one we too will vanquish. If we don't stop the Titan now, everything would have been a waste. All the blood we spilled doing nothing but watering the grass, and I say no. If we bleed, then they will give forth a flood. Raise high your blades, spears, axes, and chains of cold iron. We will topple the giant, then make it burn." With that, the front line smashed into the remaining horde. Though hunters fell, dozens of the slathering beasts were taken with each hunter. Once enough space was created, the trucks and the jeep exploded from behind the barricade and into the horde-flattened land, with Hunter Dunsole and Gas Mask Man leading the charge within the jeep. The hunters charged forth and beyond the few remaining monstrosities not yet fused with the Titan. Hunter Dunsole and Gas Mask Man split from the two trucks within their jeep and headed towards the downed helicopter. Leading their teams on foot, hunters, the AI 25,000 and that one guy got them marching, clattering their weapons against their improvised cold iron shields, trying to draw the attention of the flying entities so they would see nothing but them. The Titan, like many such beings, seemed oblivious to the hunter's presence, continuing its steady stride toward the mountain. The untold thousands of winged monstrosities that covered its surface, however, exploded from its body with murderous intent. The helicopter was utterly destroyed, with the ammunition having long since cooked off. However, amongst the broken fire-charred steel within a sealed container was the spear launcher. Hunters Dunsole and Gas Mask Man hauled the heavy box onto the back of the jeep. Gas Mask Man began driving to rendezvous with the main attack force behind the distraction force. Hunter Dunsole reported his stomach lurching after he cracked open the crate. The weapon needed to be assembled. Hunters, the AI 25,000 and that one guy, unaware of the issue, continued with the plan, as the sentient smoke that was the flying beings began to swoop down toward them. Within their groups, both the AI 25,000 and that one guy both called to their hunters, "Brace." The winged monstrosities slammed into the shields. The cries of men whose barriers failed filled the night, but others quickly took their place. A sound like burning flesh assaulted the hunter's ears as the creatures sizzled against the cold iron, unable to escape under the weight of their fellows that were still charging behind them. The jeep bounced and briefly flew as Hunter Gas Mask Man attempted to get the two back to the others. Hunter Dunsole shouted out, "Do you know how to drive?" as he briefly left the back seat, while still attempting to hurriedly piece the weapon together. "Do you know how to do self-assembly?" called back Gas Mask Man, with a humor only achievable in such situations. The distraction team strained not only under the force of the winged assault, but also the weight of the dead entities that had built atop their shields. Peeking through a gap, Hunter, the AI 25,000, could see the Titan, a great deal closer to the mountain now than it was previously. Though much of its surface was still covered with the flying beings, gaps had begun to show. Hunter Amir DePro 99 sat in the back of one of the trucks, waiting for the moment. He gripped his weapon tight enough that his knuckles paled. The sounds of the attack the distraction team were enduring resembled some kind of terrible rain, yet all Amir DePro 99 could do was wait, he later reported. By the time Hunters Dunsole and Gas Mask Man arrived at the waiting assault team, the gaps had grown on the Titan and the weapon was half complete. Realizing that if they waited any longer the distraction team would fall, Hunter Dunsole gave the order to charge. The The trucks exploded forward as if they'd been building up tension the whole time. Hunter Gas Mask Man held the jeep in place while Dunsole finished putting the spear launcher together. The assault team's first goal was the relief of the distraction team, unloading the hunters as close to the Titan as possible. Both trucks blasted their horns, calling the flying entities down upon themselves. The respite from the flowing attack of the flying entities finally allowed the distraction team to lower their shields and begin digging themselves out of the mountain of entities' bodies. Hunter Amir DePro 99 stayed up at the giant, its sheer size causing an itch in the back of his mind. The pure wrongness of such a creature ate away at his psyche. With great effort, he pushed the thought from his mind and called for the assault team to charge. It's impossible to kill a Fey Titan through sheer force of wounds. They are simply too huge. Instead, they must be poisoned. The hunter's plan relied upon the Titan's Fey nature. Instead of being a sword cutting the Titan down, they would be poisoned needles, introducing cold iron into the being. Suddenly, and in spectacular fashion, Anthra appeared before the Titan. None of the hunters could remember him riding with them, and yet there he was. These humans are funny things. They run around like their arses are on fire, trying to do everything in the short time allotted to them upon my stage, that is life. But there's the thing, they're on my stage. They're my actors, and I won't let anyone end the show, spoke Anthra, though despite this, his words seemed to slither into the minds of all present. Plucking the flower from his neck, Anthra laughed out in pain. Hunters saw as his lips moved, but could not hear what was said, and brambles thicker than a man is tall exploded from the earth, wrapping around the Titan's legs. As thorns bit into the Titan, blood wept out. It strained against the unyielding vines, but to no avail. However, the expected fall failed to take place. The Titan held its footing. Hunter Amir DePro 99 and the assault team raced towards the giant, stabbing into its feet. Each cut and slice the equivalent to a sting from an insect to such a beast. Hunter Gas Mask Man and Dunsole raced towards the giant, the spear launcher now complete, but with the Titan still standing, the weapon would be wasted. It needed to come down. Hunters, the AI 25,000 and that one guy came screaming towards the Titan. Having taken control of the last of the two trucks still running, the two had committed to one big move. Hunter, that one guy, radioed to the assault team, calling for a gap. They reacted just in time as the truck crested a lip in the ground and flew through the air. Both the AI 25,000 and that one guy leapt from the vehicle mid-flight, landing hard on the cold ground in two heaps. The truck smashed into the Titan's ankles. Though not nearly enough to topple the beast, it caused it to twist to see what had happened, which was enough for Anthra to pull with the vines. The creature was so big that it seemed to be falling for minutes, but finally it crashed into the ground, the sheer force causing all the hunters to topple as if hit by an earthquake. However, Anthra, seemingly summoning the last of its strength, bound the being to the floor. "Kill it now, you flittering mayflies," he screamed, as if holding the giant down with his own body. The hunters charged, slicing and stabbing, trying desperately to get as much cold iron into the entity as possible. They needed it still before they burnt it, otherwise the fire would break it free of its bindings. Hunters climbed onto the beast, looking for any exposed surface for their blades, but the Titan was still fighting and beginning to rise. Coming tearing over the landscape, Hunters Gas Mask Man and Dunsole flew toward the beast within their jeep. The launcher was ready and Dunsole was standing in the back of the vehicle gripping the weapon. "Don't miss," called Gas Mask Man. "Don't crash," retorted Dunsole. The Titan gave one final effort and the brambles began to snap with the force of gunshots. The Titan raised his gigantic head and Dunsole fired. The Titan went limp, crashing back to the ground, and cheers rang out across the valley until Anthra's voice invaded the hunters' minds. "Burn it, you fools!" The fire would rage for days, the mix of flesh and wood creating a thick, black, choking smoke. The hunters who took the lead reconvened, heading down to check on the support staff within the heart of the mountain, but what they found was devastating. Where Draig Goch should have been slumbering peacefully, instead was a single tree, made from the flesh of those that sheltered there. Anthros stared at the tree with a mix of rage and curiosity. They moved him. This tree, these people, were the sacrifice. While the defense of Draig Goch ultimately failed, the destruction of the Fey Titan is a legendary victory. If the Titan had been allowed to persist, not only would it have caused unimaginable devastation, it would have revealed the existence of the Fey to the wider world, massively increasing incursions from their sphere. As stated, all hunters who took part are heroes, and this fact should not be forgotten or tarnished by the loss of the dragon. We already have gamekeepers scouting the land in search of where he may have been taken. We will find and retrieve him. But I think we'll leave it there for today. With Arthur's might and Merlin's wisdom. Thank you.